Welcome to the Girl Dad Show.
Welcome to the Girl Dad Show, a professional parenting podcast. Each month, I interview entrepreneurs, leaders, and professionals who are balancing parenthood, life, and profession in the hopes to learn what it takes to be an amazing professional parent. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Girl Dad Talk. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about two things that are on my mind and really just kind of a continuation from the original 3 episodes here of my professional journey. I know I talked to you about why I moved to Austin and how I think about, parenting and time boxing and how I'm trying to find more time with my kids. And that has led me on this journey. And although I want to kind of continue on that storyline in case you are following, it's very, very hard for me to do so today because there's just these two things that have been really pressing up against my brain over the last few weeks here. And I really do want to talk about it because I think it's super important and very challenging for me as a entrepreneur and also as a parent. It's basically two really interesting things. One's pretty negative and one's pretty positive, but they're both kind of tied together and related in a lot of ways. So one of the big things that I want to talk about is the economy and just the downturn in the economy and how that has changed my trajectory and my plans and how hard it's been for me as I've lost a few clients. And I've lost some of my bigger clients over the last 6 weeks, very rapidly in rapid succession. And it has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of the tech community has been laying people off and slowing down their spend and really reducing their burn rate to kind of remedy and get ready for this recession or downturn that we're all anticipating and expecting to come. For me, it's not so much the fact that it's just hard to not have that revenue or that income. It's very reticent to being laid off, right? Except I'm kind of doing it to myself because I help my clients, do the cuts, and then I just kind of cut myself, to be honest, and kind of walk out of those roles because it's the right thing to do. You want those companies to be successful and you want to help them adjust to the needs of the business. And then you look at the business objectively, and a operations consultant isn't always the most needed thing at that moment. And so in most cases, I've been trying really hard to be objective about it. And then you're balancing that with your personal need to achieve your goals and kind of keep track of where you're headed towards. And I did have really big goals. I mean, I have very, very large goals for myself, and more than likely will not be able to achieve them the way that I want to this year. And it's because of this recession and this kind of downturn and this huge pivotal change. The world is just kind of going crazy, right? I mean, I don't even know how to explain it. The last 2 years have been absolutely mayhem, from a global pandemic to social injustice movements to world wars to supply chain issues to just everything and anything that could happen has happened, I feel like, in the last 2 years. So much so that I joke around to a lot of my friends that if aliens invaded the world, next month, I actually wouldn't even be that surprised. I actually think that it would be, of course, that's what's happening. But this downturn has been really tricky for me mentally as I try to figure out how to adjust and overcome this obstacle. And I'm not afraid of obstacles, and I definitely don't think that everything goes perfectly. And I know that the road to success is wrapped in a lot of ups and downs and hoops and trials and tribulations and a lot of effort. And you have to really want things and you have to really push for things to succeed. And I'm not by any means saying that this isn't one of those situations. And I do feel like, as hard as it is and as difficult as it is to, take that financial loss and feel like you're being laid off. And well, I am being laid off technically, because even though I did it to myself, and then having to find new clients and find new revenue sources during a downturn, which is even harder than normal. I think the biggest thing is that I struggle with actually is not even that. I actually feel pretty good about that. I feel like I can do it and I know what I need to do. And I'll probably have to work, 4 or 5 times harder for the same results. But I do know how to do it. And I do feel like I can get that same result and get back on track. The issue that I have right now is that I've been really trying to spend more time with my kids. And especially because of the last episode that I did on this podcast, it was very therapeutic and insightful and enlightening for me to think through about the whole time boxing strategy that I have. And this idea that like I used to track my time, and it felt so good to know that I was allocating a certain amount of time to spending with my kids. And I had noticed that I stopped tracking my time because I was trying to be a little bit more fluid, and I was just trying to be a little bit more unrigorous with my time tracking and time mapping, because it kind of got thrown to shit when life happened and we got into a car accident, and it got all ruined. The whole like operational rigor got ruined. And so I was trying this thing where I was like being a little bit more loose about it. And then what happened was, as I was talking about it at the last Girl Dad talk, I realized in the conversation with myself that I really should start tracking my time. Maybe I don't have to like map it out to the 60th or 70th hour, but or maybe not as much, but I definitely need to map it out because it definitely helps me frame up my priorities and how I spend my time. And then over the last few weeks, as I've been really spinning up my BD engine and trying to get new clients to replace the clients that I'm losing, I started to realize that, I'm now tracking my hours and I'm looking at the hours that I'm spending. And I was spending an increasing amount of time on work and trying to replace that income. And it's like this really hard balance, because on one side, I know I need to do this because the amount of work and effort, you put a certain amount of numbers in, a certain amount of numbers will convert, right? And that takes time to do that. And you need to do that to generate income to achieve your other goals and the goals that I have for myself and my family. And those goals are all tied to my kids as well, because the whole point of doing that is to build more assets that give me semi-passive and passive income so I can spend more time with them. This thing that I struggle with is this entire time now I'm spending even more time not with my kids to go spend time with my kids. And it is just the silliest thing, right? And it's so hard to explain why it's so hard, and then how to navigate the right decision moving forward. And it's something that I've been wrestling a lot with over the last few weeks. And then coupled with that, something that's really positive and I can't stop thinking about, and I want to share with you guys, is another project that I started earlier this year. And it's this concept of building out, service businesses. I saw that there was a huge downhill tailwind, in the market, especially here in Austin, Texas, where everyone's moving and there just isn't enough services and stuff for people that are moving here. I started a pool service business. Yes, a pool service business, literally cleaning pools, and it has quite literally enveloped my life. I love it. I absolutely love it. And my wife tells me all the time, like she notices how much happier I am when my business partner calls me, and my whole face lights up, my voice lights up, and I'm a completely different person when he calls me to talk about Blue Ocean, because it's like so joyous for me. It's such a fun business that really like fuels my fire as an entrepreneur and as a professional. And it's hard because although the consulting business in the tech community is starting to go down a little bit with this recession and everyone cutting back on costs, the pool service business is actually rising up, and it's actually going really well. And so you would think that I'd be able to just swap my time from this one to that one. But the unfortunate reality is that the service business takes time for it to build up, even though the arbitrage of value is more immediate than a tech platform might be. It's definitely a lot slower than consulting is. Meaning like the EBITDA and the profit margins for service business are typically in the smaller arena of like 10 or 15%, and it comes many months after you've built up rotations, right? And so that capital investment needs to get paid off because the EBITDA is so much smaller, and then once it gets paid off, then it can start building and stacking. And so the timing doesn't work out, right? Where I could just kind of swap one for the other and kind of ride that wave. And there's like this 6 month gap based on my financial models and calculations where I will have to fit in a gap of income and to make this work and make that kind of transition happen or make it smoother. But I'm not even entirely sure that's what I want to do, and so it's a lot of things to think about. And it's a lot of time either ways, right? So I'm still spending a ton of time trying to figure out, what I love about this business, keeping up with its growth and scale, and trying to figure out how I'm fitting all of this into the increased amount of time that it takes to build up my consulting business. And so it sounds all like total first world problems now that I say that out loud. But it's not. I mean, it is and it isn't, right? Because I think that there are real ramifications to, losing income abruptly and unexpectedly. There are consequences to that, and they are very serious, and it's very hard for me. And it is very hard to navigate, especially during these times where it's harder to find new deals, where it was a lot easier. I mean, almost like, there was just so much business and growth over the last 2 years because of just the fueled economy and the stimulus. But um, you can see a lot of that quickly changing, and I can kind of foresee it kind of spilling down across the various industries and economy. But very fortunately, I started this service business in January that has been growing at an unbelievable rate, and it actually seems, to the most part, fairly recession proof. I'm not saying that it hasn't slowed down, because it has slowed down, but not to the extent that that other industries are facing. It seems like there's a lot more resilience in the service space. And when you do research on previous recessions, it does seem that service industries have more of a resilience to it. People still need things, and they want things. And I think this is one of those situations where I picked a business that happened to be at the right time at the right place, and so hopefully I can leverage that to really grow it. But that's kind of what's been on my mind, and I've been really, really hard pressed to figure out what I want to talk about at these girl dad talks, because it's been very organic so far, and it was a lot easier the first couple, because I could just kind of tell you like my journey here, and how I'm thinking about spending time with my kids is my number one goal, and then the process working backwards to build into that. But today I just wanted to talk to you briefly about what's on my mind, and just kind of tell you like what I'm struggling with and how I'm thinking about it, and like the processes that go into like solving for it. I don't really have a good solution for it right now, and I'm hoping that I will over the next week or two here. There are a lot of big things that I'm planning on doing to resolve this situation that I'm in right now. But I will say, on a more tactical level, what I have done with my wife is we've reduced almost all of our unnecessary costs, and now we're starting to work on additional costs that we can reduce in our personal life. I've also done that for my consulting business, and then also starting to look at all my other businesses that I own, and really just like taking a hard look at things and figuring out what's a need, want, what's a semi, in the middle gray area, but like really figuring out things that I can knock off and reduce the burn on, just in case, right? Just in case I can't, replace this income, or um, the income flow and the clients. And even if I did, it's still good hygiene and operations to do that. And then really doubling down on how I can grow both the consulting business back up, and also really feed into something that makes me happy and joyous, which is the pool service business, and building it up. And then all of that is kind of like one half of my brain. So take all of that, move it to one half, and then the other half, you have just my kids, and just trying to figure out how to navigate that with them, and figuring out like how do I spend more time with them. And I had a goal to spend more time with them, even just a couple of weeks ago when I did the last episode, and talked through this out loud, and I haven't achieved it at all. I've actually spent less time with them because of the downturn in the economy, and just the amount of like attention that had to go to these two things, and I just like, it was kind of forced into my life, and I had to react to it. And so I'm finally kind of like getting some breathing room to figure out how I want to react to it and how I want to address it. And I'll have a better answer hopefully in the next week or two. But I do want to get into a good flattening of this, and be able to spend more time with my kids. I mean, I just talked to my mom the other day, and we were talking about how we haven't seen each other, or she hasn't seen the kids. I just saw her actually earlier this year when I visited the Bay, but how she hasn't seen the kid in 2.5 years now, and how unfortunate it is. And I was just starting to think really hard about like how old they are, and me moving to Austin puts us at such a proximity that it's not easy to see each other. And if we did see them like once or twice a year, like how many times would we see them, before the past, essentially. And I know it's a morbid thought, and it's a very weird thing to think about, but you think about their age, and you think about how long an average lifespan might be, and then you divide out the frequency that you think you'll see them, and then you can start kind of working backwards. And it's very, very hard truth to swallow, but you end up counting, on maybe two hands, maybe double that, how many times you might potentially see your parents, and how many times your kids might see your grandparents. And it really does put things into perspective. And so, not only time with my kids, but also time with my parents, and then also time with my parents and my kids, and really trying to figure out how I can increase that in my life, and adding that to part of the objectives and the calculus that I have for all of these things. Um, it's a shit show. My life's crazy right now. Needless to say, I hope that this was helpful and it was entertaining at the very least. I would love your thoughts, comments, questions about what I'm thinking about and talking about, and any kind of advice or feedback you guys have for me would be really appreciated. And obviously, I'm going to continue to wrestle with this. And as you probably figured out, I definitely like to think a lot and probably get in my own way a little bit. So I'm hoping, though, that me wanting to think about it and kind of map it out and whiteboard it and think through it will help me come up with some sort of solution and a plan that I can share with you guys next week. But either ways, I'd love to hear from you and hear what you think about this situation and the problem. And if you're facing the same problems or situations or issues, and if I can be of support or help, please let me know. And I look forward to hearing what you think. Thanks for checking this episode out. We'll talk soon. Thank you for listening to The Girl Dad Show. Did you know that our website is full of really fun products, like the shirt I'm wearing? Visit thegirldadshow.com to shop our t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more. And follow our social channels to hear about our latest sales.